I think we're live. I think it goes automatically
Cool.
live. But yeah, all right, guys. Well, welcome to the show tonight. We are looking a little bit different because we are on a different platform today. So we are trying out Riverside FM instead of StreamYard. So how's it going tonight, Johnny?
It's good. It's good, man. I still can't believe that we're like in episode 33. It's it's yeah, it's been a long time coming, but overall today's been good. Got some sleep in. And so yeah, the yesterday we got back from camping at a church picnic, and then this morning I didn't have to wake up until it's service time, right? So I actually got some sleep in, and um, doing doing well, ready to go. You?
Cool. Yeah, been busy today. Catching up on marketing stuff. So shot a lot of YouTube videos from my YouTube channel. So I'll have some YouTube content going
Sweet.
up finally for a while. Haven't done much. So yeah, so that's good. That's good. So finally got to catch up on some marketing here. And then I just downloaded Riverside today. So spent the morning setting that up, and so we're trying to figure it out as we go here. Don't have the cool rock music intro stuff like we did with StreamYard. Uh,
All
so
good.
yeah. But if anybody wants to help us out, right, and create us some rock music, that'd be cool. So get a theme song going. But
Yeah.
yeah. So today, right, you said episode 33, and so today we're going to be talking about does the BRRRR strategy still work, right? And if you've been in the real estate investing space, you for sure have to have heard of the BRRRR method, right? Um, and so BRRRR stands for, if you don't know, you buy, you rehab, and then you rent it out, and then you refinance it, meaning that you go to the bank and you get a loan on it, which should pay back all of your upfront capital, right? So the upfront
Mhm.
acquisition costs, the rehab cost, um, and then if you do it right, the strategy is that you should be have enough cash on top that you could pull out as well, right?
Yeah.
The last R is repeat. You do it again.
Yep.
You rinse and repeat, right? So I don't know. It's been like BRRRR is like one of those super popular strategies. Bigger Pockets really blew it up, right? Some guy in Bigger Pockets wrote a book about it. Kind of like the Holy Grail, right? And
Mhm.
I did BRRRR before I even knew it was a term. I've done that before, um, and it does work, but the environment has changed, right? Back in 2017, 18, when it was super popular, when this was being talked about, of course, rates were much different. We were in a much different environment. Everybody was still talking about, oh yeah, there's a crash coming, guys, be careful, blah blah blah, right? Didn't happen, right? Because the crash is like 10-year cycle, right? Everybody says 10-year cycle, right? So the great crash was 2008, 2009. So 10 years would have put that next crash right at 2018, 19, right? So some people were
Mhm.
nervous. Some people were like, you know what? I'm going to sit it out. I'm going to wait till this crash happens, right? Never happened, right? We saw what happened. Even COVID came and everybody was afraid they were going to die, but there are still people out buying, right?
Mhm.
And something very cool, right, is that you were kind of in your role at that time. You were at a very good role where you saw tons of investors coming in,
Yep.
buying during this period where people were freaking out about dying, right? But
Yep.
these investors are coming in to you, borrowing tons of money, investing in something that most people thought was already dead, short-term rentals. Like,
Mhm.
why are people going to buy short-term rentals? Like, people are worried about dying. Like, you can't even go outside. Like, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, but you were at the short-term shop. Is that what it's called? Mortgage shop? Mortgage shop,
Yeah, we
right?
were at
Mortgage.
the I was at the mortgage shop at that
Yeah,
time,
you were
yeah.
at the mortgage shop. Yeah. So one of the biggest real estate teams in the country that specializes in short-term rentals, right? And strictly vacation rental markets, right? So we're talking like beach markets, mountain markets, right? And you were watching all this money being made, right? And it was great. I mean, it was great for the investors. I mean, back then I was also thinking about getting into that same type of market, right? Short-term rental stuff.
Mhm,
And so I
mhm,
was looking at that stuff too. And that's kind of where we reconnected. But I was watching investors too. And I saw that they were buying um cabins in the Smoky Mountains, right? And
yep,
back then, they were going for 400,000 ish would get you like a three bedroom, maybe, right?
mhm, mhm,
And then within 1 year, those 400,000 price mark jumped to like 600, right?
yep. 600,
And
700. Yep.
right. And it was just ridiculous. It was like a, a one bedroom with a studio that previously was selling for like 300, 250, all of a sudden jumped up another 100, right? And everything was
Mhm,
just going
mhm,
up. And the people who were coming in buying it at let's say 450, right? And then they fixed it up, they put really good numbers together because COVID, I mean, really inspired a lot of people to like go on vacation, right?
Oh, yeah,
uh,
yeah, absolutely.
Es especially when you could no longer fly to international places, right? Like, Europe was shut down. They didn't want Americans, right? Um, so, like, the tourism industry at that point in time was really driving, right? I mean, in the
Mhm,
US, we could
mhm,
still fly, but, um, to other destinations in the US, but, I mean, majority of the travelers were, like, going on road trips, right? And
mhm,
even before that, I mean, the Smoky Mountains, they're one of the most visited national parks, right? And if
mhm,
you've never
mhm.
been, it's a huge tourist trap. It's like, I guess the closest thing for somebody like us who lives close is Wisconsin Dells. Wisconsin Dells on steroids, like big time,
Yeah,
big time. Like
yep,
yeah, like Pigeon Forge. You got Pigeon Forge, and then the other one is what Sevierville,
yep,
something like that,
Sevierville
right?
and Gatlinburg, yep.
And Gatlinburg, right? And yeah, it's just crazy. Like I thought Wisconsin Dells is big, but then I went there. I was like, dang, this is crazy. But anyway, so we watched a lot of investors utilize this BRRRR strategy, right? And they were able to do it so good where basically they rode up with the market, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
they also got the benefit of the lower interest rate. Um, but then nowadays, the market's completely different. So, of course,
It
prices
is.
are up. Prices are up, interest rates are up. So does the burr still work?
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. Like, so we went through, the Burr method beginning, went back when you said maybe 2017. People were doing it, things were working. 2021 ish, the Airbnb just became crazy. And those that were doing the Burr method with Airbnb were making hands over fists. Like, they were making a ton of money. And then, of course, now we're moving into, like you said, the market has changed drastically. Prices are up, so is interest rate. So the question is, does the bird method work? My thoughts are is that it still does. You just have to, run the numbers and make sure the numbers work. They are harder to find now in the Twin Cities here, anyways. Much harder to find than the way it used to be. But if you do plan on doing, a different type of model rather than just renting it out to people who are, going to be your long-term tenants, you're doing short-term tenants, you're doing group homes or whatever the case is, I'm still seeing it work, right? So um, I think that, it's definitely a strategy that people may have forgotten about, but needs to come back and take a look at it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you buy it right, it still works. But like, what are you actually seeing numbers wise, like real numbers in your market? Have you helped any clients do a burr recently? Were they actually able to do a cash out refi on top, or were they just breaking even?
So I think most of the investors that I work with have moved away from doing um like using hard money, right, to
Mhm.
purchase. So they would just come in and they would do a rehab on the property, and then they would actually just keep their cash in there. They wouldn't do the refinance piece. And so you're seeing them come in, they're buying it, they're not quite doing the burr, they're renting it out, they're rehabbing it. And then these days, instead of using a full-on refinance, like a cash out refinance, they're using home equity loans, right? So they come back, they use a home equity loan to build back their equity, and as long as the monthly payments can pay for, the mortgage, they move on to the next transaction. So it's a bit of a different, like, it's not full on cash out. It's more of a home equity loan that they use to pull the money out to then do the refinance process, and then of course rinse and repeat. Right.
Interesting. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So let's back up here a little bit, I guess. So you're saying that most of your investors that you've seen today, they're not really leveraging hard money. They're just they're just rich. They just buy it outright.
No, no, they don't buy it outright. They definitely use a loan, right? But they use
Okay.
like an investor loan. They use like a
Okay.
DSCR,
Okay.
and then yeah, after they get the DSCR, they'll keep it in the DSCR and they'll get a home equity loan, with the hopes of paying it off sooner, right?
Hmm.
So you don't see them coming back for the cash out refinances. I think
Hmm.
that people are not getting, like, back in 2021, we had like home equity loans that would go up to 100% value, right? And of course, cash out refinances that we can get back, like, I don't know, about like up to 80% loan to value. But
Hmm.
now with the market shifting, appraisers aren't appraising it as well. And so instead of getting a full cash out refinance, and not like, lenders have moved away from doing 100% financing on a home equity loan down to probably like 80%. Um, it's just faster for them, less costly from a closing cost perspective to get a home equity loan and then turn around and do another house, right? So, because
Interesting.
they're not getting as quite as much back as they used to get, unless the deal is just like superb, right? What we're seeing is that even when you're going in to buy a property to rehab, the rehab homes are costing more than they used to cost, and so I would say the equity that you're building is not as high as it once was back in the days, right? You can't
Mhm.
push the value so significantly high because everybody's being cautious right now.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So like in my market, and I'm currently actively helping a lot of investors do burrs and flips. Um, Dude, in my market in Milwaukee, it is still very competitive for investor
I believe
deals.
it.
And we're talking like homes around the 100K mark for Milwaukee proper, right? Um, Sometimes you find them around 75K, things like that. But I mean, at that point, it's almost so cheap that you better have the money to just cash it. But even when the good deals come and they're around 150K mark, uh, if you don't have the cash, you're going to get hard money because if you try to do a DSCR, it's too slow, right? Sellers are not going to wait 30
Mhm.
days, right? They're not going to wait around for an appraisal. And there's a lot of local hard money companies that do internal underwriting, right? They don't do traditional appraisals, um, so they can move very fast, right? And if you
Mhm.
give them an offer that's not contingent on financing, not contingent on appraisal, and of course, if you're doing your homework, you're having your contractor walk through it already, right, to give you a quote on what's needed on the scope. You don't need an inspection, right? Um, and even if you did inspection, everybody else is waiving it. You're not winning anyway. So, okay. So, um, but anyway, yeah, we are seeing a lot of hard money, a lot of cash on these deals, right? A lot of attention, and even in the suburbs, right? So, what I'm seeing in terms of numbers, if we want to put numbers on it, right? you could probably buy something for 120, 150. ARV is going to be like 250, right? 275. All depends on scope of work, right? And quality of your flip, materials, things like that. I always hate it when investors are like, well, how much work does it need? Well, how much money are you going to put in it? You know, like, you trying to put granite or you can just do laminate, like, I don't know. So,
Right.
um, but we also have suburbs, right? Suburb properties that are, I mean, those are going to be listed much higher. Most recent one I saw listed was uh, probably 250. I want to say 250, but ARV, shit, you could probably get 550, 600 ARV, right? So you better believe there's a lot of tension in those, right? And it was crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, 1 day, 2 days, it's gone, right? So if you're gonna be like the type of investor, oh, let me think about it. Let me run my numbers for like forever in a week. Good luck, it's gone. So, um,
Mhm.
but yeah, in our market, it still exists. You can still do good deals. I saw a couple last couple weeks, right? And yeah, but so yeah, I haven't used. You've heard of a DSCR fix and flip loan? Have you done one of those at all?
I've
I haven't.
not, no.
Okay.
No, I've
So I
not.
I have never used one of those myself, but I do know they exist. I do know that we have access to them. They're kind of like a hybrid, right? Like a hybrid, not like a in between a DSCR and a hard money. So the
Mhm.
interest rate's not going to be as high as a hard money. Um, but again, it all depends. If you got to move quickly, it's likely not going to work, right?
Yeah.
Especially if we are dealing with wholesalers too, right? If it's an off market, it's a wholesaler, those people are only taking cash or hard money, right? If you want to play games with loans, they're not going to wait for you, right? Um, so yeah, that's basically what I'm seeing on my end on how to fund them. And like you said, I have seen other people who have HELOCs, right? They have equity in other properties, and of course they can use the HELOC to buy them outright, and then do a delayed finance, essentially, right? Where
Mhm, mhm.
we can either help them refi it if they're planning to hold it, or if they just flip it and they flip it, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Um, Rehab wise, I mean, we already talked about it really depends on property to property. Um, which, I mean, what do you like to see in a property? What do you get excited about when you see in a property? What makes it a good burr for you?
I think for me specifically, when because we both invest, right?
Yeah.
The way I look at it is, are the maintenance stuff updated? So,
Hmm.
how old is the windows? How old is the roof? How old is the furnace? How old is um the water heater, right? Do we need to replace any of those things? But I think that the honest truth is that when I go and I look at one and I estimate everything out, I have to capitalize at about, like, 30% equity, right? That's kind of what I'm looking at, like making sure I get about 30% equity when I buy. And then that's, minus repair costs, right? So you're looking at putting in 70% of whatever the cost is on the house, and then capitalizing on 30. Say for example, you have a deal that is out there, and let's say the ARV is going to be 100,000, right? For easy numbers, I would need to know. I would need to be able to rehab the property as well as obtain the property, right? Acquire the property at $70,000. Otherwise, I don't even bother to go into it. But like, you got to understand that that's times three, because the average price here is about 300,000. So I have to have enough cushion in there for me to make some equity so that I could do the BRRRR process and refinance out and then get someone to rent it. In addition to that, like, I don't go and buy, like, I got some of the guys that we do business with, they do like super luxury homes. So they just flip it. They don't even do the BRRRR method because they're not going to be able to make the rent on it. So they go in, they buy these $300,000 properties, and then they fix it up. They're usually on golf courses or something, and then they sell it for about 600,000, right? And
Hmm.
so I think it just depends on what it is that you're trying to go in there with. But when it comes to the amount of repairs, right, we're looking at making sure, like, usually we're replacing the floors, we're repainting the whole entire place. Sometimes we're remodeling the whole entire kitchen, so we're gutting the kitchen out. Whereas like the living room and stuff, you don't have to gut out if you don't want to have like, but you still want it to be presentable. We're trying to be for me and my crew. We're trying to make the house look as new construction as possible, right? So that when people come through, they're like, "Oh, this looks like a brand new home," right?
Okay.
Um, so we are putting, like we're putting quartz and we're not putting granite, but we're putting quartz in the countertops. But I also don't work inside of the major metro areas. Like I don't work in St. Paul, I don't work in Minneapolis, I work in all of the suburbs, right? And
Mm,
so in the suburbs, they deem having quartz countertops. Um, and so I think it just depends when you walk in, and usually, like I said, we're replacing the whole entire kitchen, and we're gutting it out. But when it comes to everything else on the house, we just make sure the bathrooms are in good condition. If we have to gut that out, we will. But for the most part, we budget all of that, right? So
mm,
whatever the repair cost, we subtract it from the 70% that the seller is going to make. And if the numbers work, we still go in and we still do it.
yeah.
And it's got to be able to rent, right? So you got to analyze the rent for that specific local market as well.
Mhm.
Um, so that's what I look at. It's quite a bit, right?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was asking more so like when you walk into a property, like what do you like to see, right? What are signs that there's going to be money there, right? Like for example, you walk into a place and you open the door and it just reeks. Whether it's like dog piss, cat, whatever. It smells like money, right? The smell, like
I don't do those. So
really? You don't know?
like
Oh my god, maybe I'm the only one that's
yeah.
doing that because there's some places I gotta open the door, and I'm like, damn, like, hey, you go in there, have a good time. I'm just gonna stand outside with the fresh areas, like, because my investor's gonna walk through it. But there's some places that are bad, man. Like especially like for us, right? You talked about full gut. There's some places that have been vacant for so long with the roof leak and all the rain that we've had in Milwaukee too.
Yeah.
Basements get flooded. There's mold growing everywhere, right? If we
Mhm.
some places we walk in the basement, it's just mold everywhere, and you're just like, holy crap! Like, I should have brought a mask.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, those are definitely signs that there's definitely money to be made, right? And I think I like seeing those because what it does is a lot of times the amateur investors are going to run, right? They're going to run the other way,
Yeah.
right? They're not touching that at all. But the people like you just said, hey, we're going to gut everything down to studs. We're going to do everything brand new. It's fine, right? No
Yeah, I
problem.
mean, like I I don't gut out I don't fully gut out a house. Now, we do gut the kitchen just because
Mhm.
like that area is the area that like it's got to be showroom ready, right?
Oh, sure.
And so it's
Yeah.
got like usually we have to have new cabinet countertops, we have to have new
Mm,
refrigerators, ovens, microwaves and everything so that it stands out. Now,
mm.
the thing is that for clients, right? For clients that are not afraid of like so when it comes to smell, I can't do smell, right? That like I just can't do the smell. But when we see hoarder houses, right? It doesn't smell. You walk in and there's just like piles of junk everywhere. Those I think are awesome, right? Um,
They
but when it comes to the smells, like I don't want to walk into because I got to go back and I got to check on it. I don't want to have the smell there for like months before they rehab everything, spray everything down with kills, and get it to where it's actually working well, right? Or
Yeah,
it doesn't smell anymore.
yeah,
Um, and like I'm not afraid of mold. When I first started, I was super scared of mold, but nowadays, like you learn the chemicals, you learn the different things that you
yeah,
can do to get rid of mold, and you can actually get rid of it pretty quickly, right?
yeah.
Um, so I do agree with you. Like when you see certain things or certain like when you see smells, dude, like people like me, we steer clear of it. So the likelihood is you have less competition, and less
Oh,
competition means you can put in a more aggressive offer as an investor.
yeah, yeah. I don't know about you guys in the Twin Cities market. You guys really don't have a lot of full basements like we do. You guys have a lot of partial basements, right? Where it's like halfway out of the ground, halfway not. In Milwaukee, we got a lot of like full basements, like 8 feet deep. And that with basements, it's not a question of what if you have to replace the or do some kind of foundation work. It's like when do you have to do it, right? And
Mm.
a lot of times we're walking through these basements. That's the first place we go, quite honestly. Um, we go straight to the basement. We look at the foundation. If the foundation walls are not falling apart, right? Um, like, and there's different levels of falling apart here we're talking about.
Yeah.
But light cracks, like, so if you're not familiar with, like, block foundations, if it's like an inch or more, then that's kind of like big problem, right? If it's
Mhm.
over an inch of movement. If it's less than an inch, you can barely notice it with the naked eye. Then basically you all you need to do is beam it, right? Just
Mhm.
beams, metal beams to reinforce it, right?
Yep.
Which are not that expensive. And but if you're talking about if it's over an inch and you can't beam it anymore, you got to do a full excavation on the outside. You got to rebuild that wall. You're talking a lot of money. You're talking it
Yeah.
went from like 3,000 to 30,000, right? Potentially.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and then of course the number of walls too, right? So as experienced investors, we handle that all day. Newbies, they see that stuff, they will run the other way, which is where you really are going to find good deals, right? And less competition. Um, and then of
Yep.
course there's value add, right? Value add. Everybody's always complaining about how there's no deals, right? But all these investors that are complaining about, oh, there's no good deals anymore. Well, because it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Like if everything was easy, I mean everybody'd be on top of all the deals, right?
Yep.
But you got to make the deals these days, right? You have to understand, like, hey, what's the cost of rehab? Where can I add value? Um, that's kind of the whole deal of being an investor. It's not supposed to
Mhm.
be like, oh, like a slam dunk, like, yeah, I see that's a good deal. Let me go buy it, right? A lot of times you have to know what area is good, right? What's the ARV
Yeah.
here on this block versus that block? Where can I create the value, right? And you
Yep.
have to also understand not to overdo things, right? Because some
Mhm.
people are crazy. They'll be like, "Oh no, let me put an egress window. Let me add that bathroom downstairs. Let me add that bedroom downstairs." I mean, all sounds good and all, but the ARV better be there, right? Otherwise, you just sunk a
Correct.
lot of money into your project and you're not going to get it back. So, but yeah, yeah. So that's kind of what we look for to make good deals, right? You can't just find good deals anymore. You got to make them good deals. That's the point, okay? And too many investors out there thinks it's easy. They always complain, "Oh, there's not good deals." Well, depends, right? What are you going to do to it? So,
Yeah, I
um,
think I think the deals
yeah,
are out there, man. The deals are out there. You just have to go searching, and the question is, what are
mhm,
you willing to do, right?
correct, correct. Yep.
And you got to budget correctly, and you have to like. So what I realized, like, because I work with some folks that are out of state, right, and they come in and they buy, and they don't realize that our labor market here is really high. Right. So
Mhm.
in expense, like it costs a lot for you to do something. You're looking
Yeah.
at somewhere between 30 to $35 an hour for a contractor to come out to do the work, and people don't expect that, right? There people are hoping that you can get someone in for 20 bucks an hour or less to be able to repair, to fix, and to demo, and that's just not the case here in the Twin Cities. Everything's super expensive, so when you come in you better be ready to pay, a premium to get it done if you're not going to do the rehab yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And
Like,
and that is also a very good point that contractors are very hard to find that are dependable. That
mhm, mhm.
and I mean that's also another problem too is that some investors think that if they do it themselves, they're going to save a ton of money. But if you're doing hard money and the clock is running
Yep.
and you don't know how to do tile or you don't have the tools to go do it, now you're gonna go buy tiles. You're gonna have to watch YouTube to learn how to do it, and then you're probably gonna mess it up probably like 3 times, and you have to redo it, because it looks like trash. So,
Yeah.
you know, You just go hire somebody that has the tools, that has the experience. Do it once, do it right.
Yeah.
Even simple stuff like drywall, right? Drywall is very simple, but it takes skill to do it right, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you have a crew that can get it done within an hour, it'd be worth it to go ahead and just pay
oh,
them versus you trying to do it by yourself, or maybe you with two other
mhm,
guys and you're not a pro at it and it's going to take you 2 weeks to get it done. You're
yeah,
talking the amount of interest that you're going to be paying is significant on your hard
mhm,
money. And it's just best to just go ahead and pay and get it done, even if it costs a little bit more, because the level of quality as well as the time frame that you have,
yeah.
um, it yeah, for us, it's acquisition, and then, if you wanna move it into a bird process, you gotta get it rented as soon as possible, right? So,
Right, right, and the time factor, I think, time is money, right? I
yep,
think that's something that a ton of people forget, like holding
yep,
costs, right? Holding costs
mhm,
can kill a deal, especially if you use hard money, right? So we're talking like
mhm,
penalties, we're talking like fees, right? Even some monthly payments, of course. You're talking about utilities, you're talking about, you know, insurance, right? You're
mhm,
it costs money to have this project, right? And the goal is to get rid of it as soon as
absolutely,
possible.
yep,
So yeah, contractors are tough. I mean, that's kind of it's gonna be one of those things. It's like, hey, you really have to develop your relationships with contractors, and sometimes, I mean, some of my investors have become contractors. They have become GCs because of this. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to run a tight ship, make things happen, right? And sometimes that's what needs to happen, right?
mhm, mhm.
Especially if you're planning to do this as a full time business, right? So, um, what issues do you see that can happen when you're doing the rehab part? I mean, sorry, the refinance part.
Yeah, so for the refinance, like some lenders will require seasoning, right? So let's say you finish the rehab in 1 month, you're ready to put it back on the market, you get it
Mhm,
rented, and you come to one of us and you're like, hey, we want to refinance that out.
mhm.
Well, if like most lenders require 6 months, and
Yep.
so if you're gonna if you come in and you're done within a month, well then now you got to wait 6 months to even be refinanced, right?
Right.
Now there are some lenders out there that we have that will allow 3 months, but
Yep.
for the most case, they require 6 months before you can do some kind of a cash out refinance and pull your equity out. And then, of course, there's different types of cash out refinances and different, like, so a lot of the people that come through and they're doing flips and they're doing BRRRRs, they are investors and they're heavy on investing. And so they can't just do a regular conventional transaction because they're flipping or they're like it's hard to track their income, right? They're not normal W2 people. So we're looking at, probably moving over to a DSCR product. And so there's different caps, right? So a lot of the cash out refinances only allow you to go up to 75%. Now, if you when you did the rehab and everything, the value of the house didn't appreciate to where it needs to be, then now you're looking at maybe not even being able to get cash out. You might have to do a rate term refinance on that, or some different type of refinance. Um, or like I said, move over to a home equity loan that might be able to give you like 90%. But I mean, those are also very, very hard to find, right?
Mhm.
So you're looking at a bunch of different processes, different uh, ways to be able to figure out how to get that money back. And the question is, what do you do when you can't? Right? When
Yeah.
you can't get that money back, then now you got to go into a different strategy. And so I think those are kind of the challenges that we see, is seasoning, as well as loan to values, and um, the type of income that the clients bring in. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, and then something you didn't mention was, or you mentioned it a little bit earlier, appraisal, right? Appraisal comes in short.
Mhm.
That kind of screws things up, right?
Yep, yep. Especially if you're, for example, in Florida right now, where the market value is trending south, right? Or trending down.
Trending down, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When it's trending down and like let's say you go in and you think the ARV is going to be 300,000, and you go in, you repair it, and the market value has come down because there's like so many houses on the market right now for sale, and no one's buying it right at 300,000. Your appraisal comes in at 250. Now you're going to be in a really, really difficult situation. Right. So the
Mhm.
question is, what are you going to do about it? And there's only so much we can do to convince an appraiser to increase the price. Right. And the honest truth is, you have to have comps, meaning you have to have comparables within the local market that are going to be able to lift up the price value. But if no one's buying in your local market, that's makes it tough.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Appraisals are always tricky and very, very challenging to argue. So, um,
Yep.
what about something that some investors overlook is their own personal FICO score, right?
Yeah, I mean, if look, when you start a flip, there's a possibility that your FICO score is gonna drop, right? Um, and so you wanna make sure you have the right FICO score because interest rate matters.
Oh yeah.
The your monthly payment is going to change because of the interest rate. And so if the interest rate moves against you, right, say for example your score drops by even just 20 points, that could be a whole different, you might fall into a whole different bracket with a higher interest rate. Now in addition to that, like what something that people don't may not pay attention to is what's going to happen to the rate while you're in the process, right,
Mm.
before you refinance. What if rates go up? Right? The trend of the rate goes up, your score goes down. So that means it goes even higher. Will you still net a profit once you do a refinance? And on loans like DSCRs, right? The monthly payment has to be sufficient to pay for the mortgage, principal, interest, tax and insurance and HOA dues, right? So when you're doing something like that, there are risks involved in doing a BRRRR, right? And so you have to understand the risk and then of course try your best to mitigate them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, credit score is something that may not be looked at when you're doing the hard money initial loan, right? Some hard money lenders will look at it, some won't as much, some really won't care. But if your plan is to, if you have to do a refi, oh, we care, right? A DSCR
Mhm.
loan, we're looking at that credit score, and if it's not high enough, uh, you're not going to get the LTV, or you may not even get a loan at all.
That
So
is true.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think so. If you have a decent credit score, you should be able to get 80% LTV, right? And so decent meaning 700s.
Mhm,
If
mhm.
you're the lowest I saw was like 620. So 620, they were one of them. Our lenders was willing to give 70% LTV, right? Um,
That's pretty good, actually.
and then
Yeah.
I did find somebody that anybody in the 500s, they will do 50% LTV, right? But there was also another one that said, "Hey, we'll do 50% LTV, but you need to still have 150K equity left in that property, right?" Um,
Mhm,
so, I mean, there are some like that say there's no FICO score DSCR. So it does exist, but it's very low LTV, right? And so,
mhm,
if your goal was to basically pull all your expenses out through the refi, if your deal isn't right, you're not going to get it right. So,
mhm, mhm,
um, and of course, there's closing costs involved, right? Whenever you're going to do a refi with a DSCR or even a HELOC, there's closing costs, and
mhm,
so if you don't got the money sitting there to close, right? And you're banking on rolling that closing cost into your new loan you're going to get, you better hope that the appraisal value hits, right?
mhm, mhm.
So, so yeah, those are some potential hangups for you to think about, right? To watch out for. Um, anything else we miss?
No, I think that covers most of that.
So we talked about negatives of rates if rates were to move up when you're doing a refi. Now, what if you get very lucky and rates drop, say 100 basis points, so one whole percent. How does that affect a potential refi when for an investor if that does happen?
Yeah, so usually, if rates drop, it's going to be in your benefit, right? So that means that you're going to be the monthly payment's going to be cheaper, which means that you're going to cash flow better, right? Or
Hmm.
you might be able to take out more cash, right?
Right.
Depending on the situation. Like, so if you get into the position where you're netting like 125%, we may be able to, instead of doing like a 70%, 75% cash out refinance, we might be able to do an 80% cash out refinance, right? So, um, there's different benefits and disadvantages to a lower rate, but for the most case, it's going to be an advantage just because you're going to get better cash flow, right?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and then of course, if you are very fortunate, right, and the rates do trend down, and then there's enough comps, right? Usually,
Hmm. Hmm.
usually when rates go down, everybody jumps back in the market and buys, right? And of
Yeah,
course, what happens to prices when rates go down?
value goes up. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you if the market goes in the right direction for you, rates go down, all these new comps come out, right? All these
Yep.
sold comps. It's gonna basically you're riding the market up. Um,
Hmm.
so of course, the stars got a line for you and the moon and everything, but
Hmm.
yeah, there's a chance.
Yeah, with
So
rates where they're at right now, there is definitely a possibility that rates might come back down, right?
correct.
I think CPI recently just came back out, and CPI said that the inflation rate is staying steady right now, so which is better than what I think a lot of people had anticipated. So even now, like even last Friday when I locked in a loan because
Uh-huh.
it looked a lot more favorable than it did 2 days ago, right?
Mhm,
Um, and so or 2 days before Friday. And
mhm,
so the thought is that if rates are coming down, then you're doing well. But I mean, we still aren't out of the war yet. There's still a lot going on, so we just don't know what's going to happen to rates exactly.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can't control the rates, right? Like we tell people all the
Hmm.
time, control what you can control. Don't worry about stuff you can't control. That's the best advice we have for you. Don't ask us for our crystal ball.
Mitigate, mitigate in case it goes up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, cool. So, what about the rental piece of the burr, right? Do you have to do long term rental, or are there other options?
So what I've seen is you can do Airbnbs, you can do um long-term rentals. Um but that's all I've really seen because the amount of data that you collect usually is around those
Yeah.
amounts. Now, if you've already received the rent for 12 months, let's say for example it took you a while to rehab all of it. Say
Mhm,
for example you got a duplex, right? And one side of it was fine, so you started renting that out like a year ago, and you're renting it out as a group home, and you're making a grip of or a decent amount of income on that property. Once you get the other side finished, they might want to use long term for the side that just got fully repaired. But for the side that you've owned for a while, because the income is more significant than, and you've had it for 12 months, and it's more significant than um, the normal long-term rent rates, you might be able to use that to help you qualify, right? But that's not always the case, so it's gonna depend transaction by transaction. But there are other ways, other things that you can do. I think the most common two are going to be long-term rents and Airbnb.
yeah, yeah. So, with Airbnb, there are lenders that will project based on AirDNA, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And do you actually have to have it rented out? Like an actual
So, depends on the lender, but in most cases, if you're gonna use long-term rental numbers, they'll project it, right?
yeah. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times, some of my lenders I've talked that I've done a DSCR, um, either refi or purchase. It doesn't really matter. I guess same thing. Um, all they really care is that the property is remodeled, right? It's pretty much done and ready to be rented, right?
Mhm.
Uh, you don't really need somebody in there. You don't really need a lease. But of course, if you have one, and of course, if your lease is a significant amount over what they can project or use, that's even better, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and on the lending side, I mean, do they use 100% of the rental rate as to qualify the property?
Yeah, so on conventionals, right, or
Yeah,
FHA, they use
yeah,
75%, right? But on
right.
DSCRs, oftentimes they do use 100% in their DSCR
Mm,
calculation.
right, right. And so like DSCR, can you kind of explain what does that stand for? How does that loan work?
Yeah, so it's a debt service coverage ratio loan. So what that means is that you're going to be using the amount of income that you're receiving from that property to cover the debt itself, right? So
Mhm.
when they want something like a 1-to-1 ratio, if it costs us $1,000 a month, the rent has to be $1,000 a month, right? Um, so if the payment is, and we're including principal, taxes, insurance, and of course interest, and then we're including HOA dues, right? So
Mhm.
when you're looking at that total payment, if that total payment is of a certain amount, depending on each DSCR, like some will require 125%. So if your monthly payment is $1,000, then you need a rent of $1,250, right? So depending on where you fall, where your property is, your LTV also changes, as well as like that's how they qualify you. So they don't use your personal income, but they use the income from the property itself. It's more like a business loan, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's a ratio for DSCR, right? The DSCR ratio, like you said,
Yep.
sometimes it's one. So it
Yep.
has to be 1 to 1. Sometimes they're like, hey, we want to see 1.2, right?
Hmm.
So that means your rent has to be, your rental income divided by the mortgage or the monthly payment has to be higher or equal to 1.2. Um,
Hmm.
now sometimes even if the requirement is 1, but you can prove that you're at a 1.5 or something, right? Much higher, they'll actually give you a better rate because
Hmm.
you're less risky, right? Your loan is less risky, right? In their
Yep.
eyes. So that's one way to reduce a rate on a DSCR loan. What are some other ways that? Well, let's first talk about what's the expectation of a rate on a DSCR loan compared to, let's say, conventional investment loan. What does that usually look like?
Yeah, so so more recently, what I've seen on a conventional investment loan versus a DSCR loan, the difference usually is about 1 point, right? It's one discount point, and the rates will be pretty similar across the board. However, like interest rates on DSCRs are just usually higher, right? So that's
Mm,
something that you have to expect, is that the interest rate on a DSCR, because they're not using your personal income to qualify, it's gonna be um, uh, a little bit higher. If not, it could be significantly higher, right? I've seen them as high as like 10%, right? So, and it costs more to do those transactions, right? So you're going to be looking at, instead of 1 point on average, like on conventionals, FHAs, VAs, you're going to be looking at least 2 points on average, right?
mm,
Um, so that's what I'm seeing anyways on my side here in the Twin
mm,
Cities. And then there are other options, right? Now in Minnesota here, they pretty much don't allow prepayment penalties, right? So we don't our rates are going to be a little bit higher than other states. But when you go into, let's say for example, Texas, right, there are prepayment penalties that are allowed. So if prepayment penalties allowed, you can put on a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 prepayment penalty, and they'll reduce your rate, right?
mhm,
And what I mean by 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is, let's say, for example, you go in the first year. If you decide to sell the property or pay it off, you got to pay that 5% interest rate for the closing on, based on your current principal balance. So if your current principal balance is 300,000, you're going to be paying a penalty of about $15,000. So
Oh,
that's something that you just have to be prepared for in the first year. In the second year, of course, it falls down to 4% and so on until it gets removed off in the fifth year. There are also 3-2-1s, and then there are also like 5-5s, which means like for 5 years, if anytime you pay, and those the rates are usually a little bit better. Um,
mhm,
no matter what year you pay it off in the first 5 years, you're gonna be paying 5% penalty, right? So um, every lender is a little bit different, every pricing is a bit different. So you just got to understand how it kind of works. And prepayment penalties are real. I've had a few different clients that came through and they decided they wanted to exit after 3 years and they had to pay like I think it was like $40,000 in prepayment penalties. So
dang.
um, yeah. Luckily, the increase in prices went up significantly, so they made about $40,000 on the transaction, but they could have made 80 if they didn't have a prepayment penalty,
Oh,
right?
man. At that point, I would just hold, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's very interesting, right? If you're not familiar with the prepayment penalty, I mean, essentially, it's like a risk saying that, "Hey, I do plan to hold this property for at least X amount of years," and it also considers refinancing too, guys, not just selling, right?
Correct.
It triggers if you refi, right? So, if the rates dip and you're like, "Oh, yeah, it's time to refi," well, you're going to trigger that prepayment penalty because you're getting rid of that mortgage, right? Um,
Mhm, mhm.
so very important, very important. But what it can do for you, essentially, I just recently helped another investor do it and do a DSCR refi, and we did a 5 year PPP, and yeah, he was able to get a rate that was basically the same as a first time home buyer conventional rate, right? For an
Wow.
investment property. They're really good. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty good." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm holding it 5 years or more, so I don't care." "All right, as long as you hold it 5 years or more." Yeah,
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. That's the
So,
key.
yeah, that is the key. So yeah, that is one strategy that you could implement to, lower your interest rate. And so, we're talking about, you know, if you don't wanna play the PPP game, uh interest rates higher for DSCR. Sounds kind of like a pain in the ass type of loan. Why would somebody want to use a DSCR versus a conventional investment loan?
Well, it's like what I said earlier, right? A lot of these guys that are doing burrs and flips and they're real estate investors,
Yeah.
they're living off of these transactions that they're doing. And so they
Mhm.
don't have a consistent income flow
Mhm.
and they can't use their personal income, right?
Okay.
Or
Okay.
let's say, for example, they just jumped into self employment, or I
Mhm.
mean, they're a realtor and they don't have a consistent 2 years of income. Or, I
Sure.
mean, you name it. Usually it has something to do with the income basis is that they can't jump in without the property qualifying for itself. They have to actually
Mm.
like they won't be using their personal income. And then of
Right.
course I have some clients that they do it just because they don't want to provide their tax returns because they had convoluted tax returns even though they make tons of income. Their
Yeah.
tax returns is like 1,000 pages and so they're
Yeah.
like I'd rather not send it over to you. Let's just do the
Uh-huh.
DSCR, right?
Exactly right.
Mhm.
So it's even though the rate is higher, it's the pain in the ass factor, really. Right?
Right.
That's really what it is. I mean, because of DSCR, all you're really looking at is your credit score, right? As far as the person is concerned, you're not checking their income. You don't care if they have a job or if they have income, but they do have to show that they have money. They have to show that they have
Mhm.
reserves, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then really that's it for the person, right? That's all they're looking at the person, and then the rest is the property has to pencil out, right?
Yeah. And I think another aspect is that people like to put homes, like if you're an investor, they like to put homes in an LLC, right?
Okay. Yep.
And
Yep.
so on conventional VA, FHA, usually it's a lot harder to do it if you could do it at all, right?
No, you can't. You
So
can't do
yeah,
it.
like so I've seen it done before on conventionals, but you got to go to specific I don't know, small institution banks that will allow you to do it. They probably portfolio them, but
Yeah, it's probably
they do it
in-house.
as a conventional. Yeah, they do it as a
Yeah,
conventional.
yeah,
But for DSCRs, we can put it right into an LLC. You can close in the
right.
LLC, right? And sometimes some of the DSCR lenders, they don't report it on your personal credit report because it's in the LLC and it's a business, right? So,
Right, business purpose loan,
um,
right. Mhm.
right, right, right.
Yep, so those are some good perks, for closing in a DSCR, right? Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's something to think about, right? Um, alright, so you mentioned something about HELOCs instead of a refi. Instead of doing a DSCR refi, you refi it to a HELOC. Um,
Mhm.
is that possible?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. What
Mhm.
people run into usually is they go to their local credit union and try to get a HELOC on their investment properties,
Uh-huh,
and most credit unions, most banks will not do a home equity loan on an investment property, right?
correct.
But as brokers, we have access to HELOCs that allows you to draw funds
Mhm,
from your property. The catch with that is that HELOCs are like traditional loans, so you have to qualify from an income perspective, right? In
mhm,
addition to that, or I should say, not all HELOCs are like that, but most HELOCs you still have to qualify from an income perspective. And then usually the HELOCs they only allow you to borrow up to a certain amount depending on the type of HELOC, right? So I'm seeing kind of a 75% loan to value on most HELOCs that we're doing, and they're being done on investment properties. So
correct, yeah,
that is an avenue. The closing cost isn't as significant, right?
right,
So usually you're looking at somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000 on a $300,000 house for closing costs on a cash out refinance, but on a
yeah,
HELOC it might be like 1,000, right? So you pull the credit
yeah,
report, you get the appraisal done, and then the notes are put together. Now, if it has to go to the title company, then got to pay title fees. Maybe it's $2,500 instead of 3,000, right?
sure. Yeah, so, HELOC products, like you mentioned, for investment properties have become a lot more common nowadays.
Mhm, mhm,
I remember back then, a couple years ago, you'd ask around, everybody was like, "Nope, it's only for a primary owner occupied property," right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
but yeah, as brokers, we do have access to HELOCs on investment properties, and it all depends on, is it a single family, is it a duplex, triplex, quadplex, and then other things depend on, are you living in it? Are you living on one side of it, right? If it's a
mhm,
multifamily. Other scenarios are like, well, what lien position is the HELOC going to be in? Is it first position, meaning that there's no other loan on it, right? Um, if you have a hard money loan, you could probably pull a HELOC to pay off the hard money loan to replace it, right? So then it would be in the first position. Um,
mhm,
or if you already have an existing mortgage on your investment property, the HELOC could come in second position behind that one, right?
mhm,
Um, and so there's a lot of questions we would have for you on, how much equity do you have, what position are you in, um, all that stuff. You got to talk to us to figure out, okay, how much can we actually lend to you, right? um, One of the coolest parts though is that if you are approved, we can pretty much give you the money within 5 days or less. It'll hit your account. So yeah. And then we also do have a DSCR HELOC product as well. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, I'm still
Did
looking
you
into that
freeze?
one.
Are
I'm
you still
not
there?
familiar with it. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. Anything else that we're missing about the refi
No,
part?
I think we covered just about every part of the refinance part, like seasonality, um, DSCR,
Fees. Yep. Yep. Okay.
75% on conventionals. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, of course, your FICO score really does play a big part in DSCRs too. So,
Mhm.
That's also a big pain point for a lot of people out there where their credit is not as good, right? And they need to consolidate debt and they look towards the HELOC. But if you're under 600, likely we cannot help you. Um,
Right.
I think the lowest I've seen is 640. So yeah. Any other like hurdles, common mistakes where people mess up on a burr that you know of?
I think the what people take for granted is, the holding costs.
Mhm.
We talked about that a little bit earlier. What they take for granted is the time frame that they can get it finished.
Okay. Yep.
And so a lot of times they go in thinking they can finish it in a certain time. Like, look, I don't know about you guys, but every contractor I've ever used, except for maybe like one time or one off time, they don't finish on time, right? Something always comes up. And that means that, like, and it may not be the contractor's fault, right? You might be in the middle of something, and let's say, for example, the pipes just do weird things, and now you got to fix that before you can continue going, and it delays the process. So you got to plan for delays, right? Um, and then of course, y- market shifts. You gotta plan for that. If a market shift, what are you gonna do? Are you still gonna burr it? Are you gonna then sell it? Like, usually I like to have like three different strategies, right? Whether I'm gonna rent it, I'm gonna sell it, I'm gonna put it into an Airbnb, or I have an investor that will buy it from me and put it into an Airbnb. Whatever the case is, have a few different options for exit strategies. That's my thoughts on that. And
Mhm.
then I think the only thing that they might take for granted is how much work they actually have to do, right? On a house, when you go into the project, usually if you open up one wall, it opens up a can of worms to another thing, right? And you just have to
Mhm.
be prepared for those kind of things. Like, I always add a 10% budget to whatever it is that I'm going to be doing for just in case, right? But everybody has a different number. Everybody also has different skill sets. I don't do any of the rehabs myself, so that's why I budget for it. If I was doing the rehabs and I was good at it, right, then maybe I won't budget for that much. Maybe it's additional, I don't know, $1,000, right? So I think those are the three things that I can think of right out the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that covers a lot, really. Um, but yeah, time factor is one of the biggest things, and then like you said,
Mhm.
surprises, right? There's
Mhm.
always surprises, guys. Good
No
or
doubt.
bad. Good or bad. Of course, we prefer the good ones, but
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that is pretty much everything you need to know about a burr. But what's your final decision? I guess the title is "Does it still work?" What do you think?
I think it still does. I think you gotta, for me, it's always buy right.
Mhm.
Right. So you just have to, these days we're looking a little bit harder, right? So
Yeah.
in the Twin Cities here anyways, right? Because if we were to go to like Ohio, I think there's a ton of opportunity, right? But
Mhm.
here in Minnesota, like, there's a lot of investors up here. A lot of deals happen behind the scenes, right? So it doesn't show up on the MLS. A lot of, private buyers, private lenders, private investors, they're coming in and they're snatching up stuff before we even know it. My thoughts is that, are the numbers still working? Yeah, like, you remember we had Two Fang on the show not that long ago, right? About a week ago, Two Fang posted up a burr that he didn't have time to do, but he wanted to throw it out there in case someone did.
Mhm.
Um, and I ran the numbers and I was like, "Yo, like, these numbers work. Like, this one will work out really, really well. I think you'll have like a good like 40% equity on top of that. If you burr it, you'll be able to get some of your money back." And then the numbers from the rental perspective worked. And I was like, this is actually a really, really solid deal. So are they out there? They are. You just got to get connected. And I always say, when deals feel like they're not out there, you need to double down on marketing as well as double down on networking in order to find more people who are doing more deals to be able to work with, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I'm always seeing deals too. I just don't have the money.
Mm.
So if
Whatever.
you're
We
looking for
we know you
deals,
have
let
the
me know.
money.
Well, I have the money, okay, but I don't want to spend it. So, and I don't want to do the deals either. Honestly, like I don't want to deal with the contractors. So, uh,
Yep. Yep.
so that's why I don't want to do the deal. But I will help you find the deal if you have the money. So, hit me up. I have like legit. I found a couple deals last couple weeks here that would have been really good deals. But yeah, I still need to get a two fang, get me in the club here, get me in that school, so I can start setting my deals in there.
Do it.
So we'll
And
see. We'll see.
actually, he's running a promotion right now, and he
Mm,
told me that if I had a guy, he'd be able to do it for free, right?
mm.
And so if you want in, I'll let him know. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to push you into the yeah, yeah.
Sounds good.
I'll let him
Sounds
know.
good.
So that's one of the 7. So if anybody's out there looking to get into a school community that understands how to flip as well as how to burr, like I think Two Fang up here in the Twin Cities, he's like one of the king of burrs up here. So if you're looking into getting into that kind of community, let me know. Let's get connected so that I can get you into the school program, hopefully for free. If not, there is a membership fee, and so you just got to be quick, right? So you can
Mm.
be one of the free ones.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right. So yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. We've covered pretty much everything you need to know about burrs here. They do work. They do exist. May not be able to get a cash out as good as before. Like I swear back, like early in the episode, right? People who are buying those STRs and all that, um, dude, they were cashing out like 200K on top of the refi, where basically it was the down payment for the next deal, right? And then they would do it again and
Yeah.
again and again, right? Um, yeah, it was just nuts. You can't really do that anymore. Don't expect to be able to do that. But I would say, honestly, as an investor, if you can get all your cash out and you just hold the property and you still gain, right, the rent is still covering the mortgage, you still own the property, you're holding it, you're gaining equity appreciation, you're putting in the power of amortization, right, to pay down your debt, which is also going to build more equity for you. um, that's a win. Right, that's what I would consider a win. um,
Yeah.
if if what you consider a win is 200K cash out, yeah, good luck. That I don't think that's happening anymore. um, yeah, yeah. But I mean, burrs can be the very interesting part about burrs. They can be applied to anything, really, right? Like single family, multifamily, apartment complexes, short-term rentals, right? Um, so there's many ways to do it, really, and you just gotta look for the deals and be ready. So next week, what did you want to talk about next week?
Yeah,
Next
we want to
episode?
go over Airbnbs, right? We want to bring you back into the Airbnb market, since we're thinking about doing an event out in Florida.
Oh yeah.
We want to talk about Airbnbs because the Airbnb market has been kind of shifting. So you're seeing less people do it because of the cost to be on Airbnb, as well as like there was a ton of people that went in, didn't realize that it was going to be a hospitality business, and then could not run the business, right? So now, if you are willing to do hospitality, or hospitality because you've worked at a hotel, or you've managed, I don't know, a Comfort Inn or something like that, or a bed and breakfast, Airbnb still makes good money. And so I wanted to go over what it looks like today versus what it looked like back in 2021, where you had COVID and everybody wanted vacation still, but they want to do local. Now everybody can travel the world, so things are changing up a little bit, right? So I think that there's going to be a second wave coming in, and people are selling at a discount price, right? They may have bought for, like, say for example, $750,000 in the Sevierville area in Tennessee, but now they're selling it for like 600,000. So there's an opportunity.
All right. Look forward to seeing that. I might have to jump back into the Smokies. I was planning to buy there, but prices went crazy high. So, and honestly, I wanted a beach house instead of a cabin house. So,
Yeah, I think we're more beach people than cabin people.
plus not only that, I mean, it's harder to get to the Smoky Mountains for me, right? It's not as easy to fly
Mhm,
directly there.
mhm.
So beach market was a little bit more easier to fly to. So that was one of my decisions. But yeah, we'll talk about more of that stuff next week. Look forward to talking about it. And so yeah, that's it for this episode. We'll see you guys next time.